What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode. Dr. Mike Axler here, professor of exercise science, PhD in applied human physiology, 60 plus time marathoner and ultramarathoner, and performance coach. Today, we are going to be talking about muscle versus fat and why it is way more healthy and advantageous to build muscle than it is to burn fat specifically. So there's this problem, this idea with, quote unquote, just losing weight and just going off the number on a scale. When we focus too much on the number on the scale, we're not taking into consideration body composition. Body composition, which we talked about from previous episodes, is going to be this nice ratio or interplay between our lean muscle mass we have, the body fat mass we have, as well as like body water. But in general, with losing weight, we're not really going to be focusing on body composition, but just the number on the scale. And this is a similar issue with BMI. If you ever go to the doctor and the doctor's like, oh, like your BMI is getting a little bit too high, you're like closer to being overweight, and you're like, hey, I'm an athlete, right? And that's not taking into account the amount of muscle you have. So if we're just thinking about losing weight and looking at the number on the scale, we're also not taking into account muscle and adipose tissue, and those two types of tissues are very, very different. Further, the second problem with just losing weight is that losing weight does not equal improved health if muscle is going to be lost. So, as we'll detail in the next couple of slides, muscle is incredibly healthy. It's incredibly metabolically active and advantageous, whereas body fat or adipose tissue is not. The third problem with just losing weight is that the real goal shouldn't be just like decreasing the amount of weight on the scale, but decreasing fat loss while maintaining or increasing muscle mass. Now, we need to discuss this idea of muscle as being metabolically protective. So let me kind of first sell you on this idea of why it's important to have skeletal muscle. So number one, muscle is a very metabolically active tissue. This means that muscle is going to burn through considerably more calories at rest than does body fat or adipose tissue. So if your goal is to be lean and healthy for the rest of your life, it would behoove you to put on as much muscle as possible without having as much adipose tissue as possible. Second, on muscle being metabolically protective, our muscle increases our basal metabolic rate. So the amount of calories that we burn per day is very much contingent upon how much muscle we have. Third, muscle also improves glucose regulation and insulin sensitivity. We've discussed this in previous videos that after you eat a meal, your blood sugar or your blood glucose increases, and your pancreas has to then secrete insulin to drive that blood sugar down and store it away in the liver and skeletal muscles. The thing is that the more muscle mass we have, the more storage room and storage volume we have to store all of that blood glucose and blood sugar in the muscles. So your pancreas doesn't have to work as hard, which means you're less likely to become type 2 diabetic and then go on to develop another cardiometabolic disease. And further, with muscle mass being metabolically protective, muscle does help clear lactate, hydrogen ions, and other metabolic byproducts during exercise, so it can just help you exercise more efficiently and stronger over the course of your life. On the flip side of things, however, to try and sell you on the idea, if you needed any selling on the idea that you don't need a whole lot of body fat or adipose tissue, this is why losing fat isn't just enough with respect to like a fat loss phase. So adipose tissue or body fat, they're synonymous terms, is very much less metabolically active than muscle mass, right? We've already detailed that. Fat stores energy, whereas muscle uses energy. We know that fat, for every pound of fat you have, it stores around 3,500 calories. And that's a very positive homeostatic mechanism. Thousands of years ago when our ancestors didn't know where their next food was going to come from. If they had body fat, that means they had calories just to stay alive. For us though, where refined carbohydrates and saturated fats are so easy and inexpensive to come by, we don't really need a whole lot of it. Also, excess fat, and especially visceral fat, so fat on like your body tissues outside on the periphery, not the subcutaneous fat, which is helping insulate our organs. This excess visceral fat increases inflammation. And we know that inflammation is a huge precursor to various cardiometabolic diseases. Anything from stroke, heart attack, Alzheimer's, dementia, a whole host of issues come from people having too much body fat. And lastly, fat loss is important, but muscle mass protects longevity. Remember that last point. Alrighty, and here's the real kicker: muscle as a longevity marker. So it has been shown in the research time and again that higher muscle mass is equal to lower all-cause mortality, such that strength is more predictive of lifespan than either weight or BMI. And I made a post a while ago about like grip strength, how strong you can grip a specific caliber to measure force, like in newtons. And the stronger someone is, the better chance they have to live a long life than even if like they're a little bit overweight. So strength equals health and longevity. If someone experiences sarcopenia and a loss of muscle mass, which does start to slowly happen after the age of 30, this increases frailty, poor balance, risk of falls, decreases in activities of daily living, decreases in social time, and decreases in confidence. There's so many issues, negative issues that come with loss of muscle mass and muscular strength. So I'm hoping you're starting to see the whole big picture here that yes, we need to decrease the amount of body fat we have, but we very much need to increase the amount of muscle mass we have. So one fair question to ask, and we should answer right now, is what happens when you diet without lifting weights or without training? And this is the cost, so to speak, of losing weight without lifting. So when you do lose weight without lifting weights and you're just going off of caloric restriction, up to 25 to 30% of your weight loss could come from lean mass, which could come from muscle, which is very much not what you want to do. This in turn will cause our metabolic rates to drop, which makes it harder to maintain your weight. And this is what happens when people get that phenotype of skinny fat, when like if they're wearing like a large oversized t-shirt, something like I'm wearing now, they look skinny because they're not like a huge person. But if you were to look at their body composition, they have higher body fat and lower muscle mass. And that's not good. As we said, that's a precursor for various neurodegenerative diseases, cardiometabolic diseases. We don't want that. So long-term maintenance becomes nearly impossible without strength training. This is also what happens with a lot of endurance athletes as well, is that they get into running, biking, swimming, triathlons, whatever it is, because they want to lose weight, because they want to be healthier. And they do more and more and more cardio. And what ends up happening from there is that, yeah, their heart rate drops because they have an increased stroke volume and increased efficiency of the heart. They start to get smaller, not necessarily better body composition, but just smaller because they do lose a lot of that muscle mass and some fat. But what they end up noticing is that as they start to eat according to their appetite, they start to put on weight. And they do more cardio, they put on more weight. They do more cardio, they put on more weight. And they're like, what's happening? It's like, you're doing your cardio, you're probably eating relatively healthfully, but you just need to put on muscle mass, because muscle mass is going to be the healthy, metabolically active tissue, which is going to help you burn more calories, look more healthy, and just be more healthy. So while building muscle is harder than losing fat, it is very much worth it. So if anyone has ever spent a considerable amount of time in the gym lifting weights, maybe during like a bit of a bulking phase and then spent some time cutting weight and going through a fat loss phase, we know that muscle gain is going to be much slower and requires more consistency than fat loss. But the thing is that this can be really advantageous. So it's all going to be up to you with whatever your goals are, whatever your pre-existing conditions are, however you're looking right now, however your health is right now. But if you were to start to kind of squirm in your seat and ask the question of, well, what should I do? Should I look to lose weight? Should I look to build muscle? I would say both. Get to the gym 2 to 4 times a week. build up muscle, and do cardiovascular exercise every day of the week. And just eat healthy foods to support the physical activity. And what will naturally happen as you eat healthy foods, as you resistance train, and as you do cardiovascular exercise, your heart and lungs will get healthy from the aerobic exercise, and your musculoskeletal system will get healthy from all the weightlifting. And over time, your body composition starts to get better, muscle mass goes up, body fat goes down, and you just start to get healthier. Alrighty, so how to shift focus to muscle first. So some practical takeaways. Track your strength and your progress, not just your weight. This is something I am personally big on, is I don't really weigh myself too much. I think it's just one of those minefields that I don't really want to traverse. So what I do week to week to week to week is I want to make sure that my running splits are getting faster, and my lifts are just getting stronger. Yes, I've been at this for like 10, 15 years and I've plateaued a bit, but even those marginal gains are enough to keep me excited and keep me in the game, and they could help you too. Second, eat enough protein, around 1 gram per pound a day. On here, I have like 1.6 to 2.2 grams per kilo. But since I guess most of you are in the US and you use Imperial, around 1 gram per pound of body weight per day is wonderful. As we had detailed previously, resistance train 2 to 4 times per week, working out every muscle group around 3 to 4 sets. So chest, back, legs, shoulders, bicep, triceps, abs. Just do 2 or 3 sets on each of those 2 or 3 times a week, along with your protein. It's going to be phenomenal. If you do want to know your body composition, use different tools like a DEXA scan. If you could get access to one of those, right, in like a hospital or a clinic setting, the in-body, calipers, a BIA scale. A lot of the scales that we have at home connect to an app on your phone, and it gives you a pretty decent approximation of your body fat percentage, of your muscle mass percentage, of your BMI, of the amount of body water you have, your skeletal muscle weight, your bone mineral density. Really, really cool stuff. So if you don't already have a BIA or bioelectrical impedance analysis scale, then I'd very much recommend you do that. And lastly, just view the scale as a data point and not the goal. So if you know that before vacation you weighed X amount of pounds and after vacation you gained X plus 2 pounds, and you say, okay, I want to lose those 2 pounds. Okay, use that as a gauge to get back in the gym and eat healthy, but don't become obsessive with it. Your weight is going to trend up, it's going to trend down, it's going to trend up, going to trend down. But the main thing is that you look at it over the course of months and years. And if you're consistently getting to the gym, if you're consistently doing your cardio, if you're consistently eating healthily, you probably have nothing to worry about. Awesome. Lastly, TLDR, the summary of today. So health does not equal weight loss. It does not equal a lower number on the scale. It's about how much muscle you have and the quality of that muscle, both the cardiac muscle and the skeletal muscle. Second, more muscle equals a higher metabolism or metabolic rate, which equates with better aging, better longevity, and just greater resilience in life. And lastly, in the battle of muscle versus fat, muscle wins every single time. So flex those arms, get to the gym, keep eating your protein. And with that, thank you so much for tuning into another episode. If you did like this, please do remember to like, subscribe, and share this with a friend who needs to hear it. We'll continue to make these videos and do the Instagram posts and Substack posts, which you can scroll on down to and subscribe to nearly every day of the week. And with that, again, I hope you did enjoy, and I'll check you all in the next episode.